Integer computation. In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with integers. Let's start with adding. Suppose you had the problem 4 plus 9. I like to think about these addition problems as money problems. So positive numbers, I think about money that I have. And negative numbers, I like to think about money that I owe someone. So in this situation, I have positive 4 plus positive 9. So I can think of this as having $4 and having $9. Altogether, I have $13. So positive 4 plus positive 9 is positive 13. Suppose you had the problem negative 4 plus 9. Remember, I'm going to think about this in terms of money that I have and owe. So in this scenario, I would owe someone $4. I have $9. If you think about paying off your debts, once you pay the $4 to the person that you owe, you'll be left with $5. You're left with $5 that you have, so it's positive 5. Therefore, negative 4 plus 9 would be positive 5. If I took the problem 4 plus negative 9. Now let me pause right here just to make sure we all understand. The negative 9 is in parentheses. It doesn't have to be placed in parentheses. This is just one way that we use to differentiate to make sure you know that this is a negative number, not 4 plus minus 9. It's 4 plus negative 9. Again, you don't have to have the parentheses, but it's highly recommended. So you have $4, that's positive. You owe $9. Now in this scenario, you do not have enough money to pay off your debts. However, if you try to start paying off your debts, you'll still have $5 left to pay. So if you owe someone $9 and give them $4, you'll still be left with paying them $5 somewhere down the road. So that's why it's negative 5. Remember that negative I'm using to represent money that I owe someone. And then let's try one more addition problem. If I had negative 4 plus negative 9. Now in this scenario, I owe $4 and I also owe $9. I do not have any money for this particular scenario. So in this case, I owe a total of $13. So negative 4 plus negative 9 is actually going to be equal to negative 13. Now, this should be a review. The money situation you can use to think back to in case you forget the shortcuts or the rules. But there are some rules that you should already be familiar with. And those rules, when you're adding integers that have the same sign, like we did here in the first example and the fourth example, when you're adding integers that have the same sign, you actually add up those integers. So 4 plus 9 is 13. Here, if I ignore the negatives, 4 plus 9 is still 13. But the answer has the same sign as the problems. In examples 2 and 3, I was adding integers that did not have the same sign, a positive plus a negative or a negative plus a positive. In these scenarios, think about subtraction. 9 minus 4 is 5. To figure out the sign of your answer, look at your numbers that you were adding. Which one has the greater absolute value? Here, the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. The absolute value of 9 is 9. 9 is bigger, and it's positive, so the answer is positive. Here, the absolute value of negative 9 is 9. Absolute value of 4 is 4. So we're dealing with 4 and 9. 9 is definitely bigger, which came from the negative 9. Negative, answer is negative. All right, let's talk about a subtraction problem. Suppose you had the problem 4 minus 9. Now, the money scenario was quite effective when we were dealing with adding integers. Here we're not adding, we are subtracting. So when you're dealing with subtracting integers, there's a trick to this. And that trick or rule is, you can refer to it as keep, change, change, or a lone change, or add the opposite. At any rate, what you're doing is 4 minus 9 is the same, will have the same solution as 4 plus negative 9. Keep, change the sign, change the sign. So the minus becomes a plus and you change the sign of the second number. At this point, we can follow the rules for addition. I have $4, I owe $9. The net result is negative 5. Therefore, 4 minus 9 is negative 5. How about negative 4 minus 9? Remember, keep, change, change. Keep, change, change. Negative 4 plus negative 9 is negative 13. Therefore, negative 4 minus 9 is negative 13. How about 4 minus negative 9? Remember, I'm putting the parentheses here so we know that this is 4 minus a negative number. So we're going to do keep, change, change. 4 plus 9 is 13, so 4 minus negative 9 must also be 13. Remember that this keep, change, change is only used when we are subtracting integers. You only use it when you are subtracting. Alright, so we're subtracting, so we're going to do keep, change, change. So it becomes negative 4 plus 9. I owe $4, I have 9. When I pay off my debts, I'll be left with $5 that I have. So it's positive 5. Negative 4 minus negative 9 is positive 5. Alright, multiplying. Suppose you had the problem 4 times 9. Now the rules for multiplying integers are not the same as those for adding and subtracting. When you're multiplying integers, you want to just think about if your signs are the same, your answer is positive. If your signs are not the same, your answer is negative. However, that rule is only true when you're working with two numbers, two integers. So 4 times 9, they're both positive numbers, so my answer should be positive. In this case, positive 36. If I was going to do negative 4 times 9, well, I know 4 times 9 is 36. The signs here are different. I'm multiplying a negative number times a positive number. So my answer should be negative 36. 4 times negative 9, different signs, so it's negative 36 again. And finally, if I had negative 4 times negative 9, the signs are the same, so your answer should be positive, and in this case, it would be positive 36. Now remember we said that rule, that same signs, your answer is positive, opposite signs or different signs, your answer is negative, that only works when you're multiplying two numbers. So if I had something like negative 4 times negative 1 times negative 6, well, they do all have the same sign, but that does not necessarily mean that my answer is going to be positive. So use your order of operations here. We know that negative 4 times negative 1, well, they have the same sign, so that answer is positive. Bring down the multiplication sign and then the negative 6. If I asked you what 4 times negative 6 was, you'd say, well, they have different signs, so the answer is negative 24. So be careful with those rules. Same signs positive, opposite signs or different signs negative is only applicable to when you are multiplying two numbers at a time. All right, dividing. Last review. So this time we have 36 divided by 9. Actually, the rules for dividing integers are the same as those for multiplying integers. So 36 divided by 9, well, I know that that is 4. If your numbers have the same sign, your answer is positive. Otherwise, your answer is negative. So negative 36 divided by 9, different signs or opposite signs, so that should be a negative 4. If I have 36 divided by negative 9, different signs, so my answer is negative again. And if I had negative 36 divided by negative 9, same sign, so the answer is positive 4. Now, once again, This is only applicable, that's the rule same signs positive, opposite signs negative. That only works when you're multiplying or dividing two numbers. So if I had the problem negative 36 divided by negative 9 divided by, let's say, negative 2. Well, they all have the same sign, but that does not necessarily mean, because I'm dealing with more than two numbers, that doesn't mean necessarily that the final answer will be positive. So remember your order of operations here. So the first set of division, negative 36 divided by negative 9, well, that's positive 4. Bring down the division sign from here and the negative 2. Now, if I asked you what 4 divided by negative 2 was, different sign. So the answer is negative. So the final answer here is actually negative 2. Negative 2.